Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for convening this critical hearing. And to all of our witnesses, we appreciate so much you being willing to be here today to help draw attention to this critical issue for us. The work that you do to advocate and represent the most vulnerable is so important, and we appreciate you being here. I've spent much of my career focused on this issue. As a federal prosecutor in the Middle District of Florida, I led the Child Exploitation Task Force, and now as a member of Congress, want to ensure that we are doing all of the things we need to do to support you in this important work. Ms. Cooper, I'd like to come back to you. We touched earlier on the Report Act. I'm very proud to be working on that legislation with my colleague, Representative Dean. You noted that there are, in fact, ways that we can work in a bipartisan fashion, even in an election year, and this is one of them. This issue is something that Republicans and Democrats all care about. Tell me about how the Report Act and the legislation you're developing with HSI will help you combat this problem and rescue more children.
Yeah, the Report Act is a really important bill because it helps really modernize the process of submission to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and allows them to build in some technology solutions so that they can handle the volume of images that they're receiving from the field. But it also makes it easier for law enforcement in the field to be able to transmit those images. I think right now they're mailing them in, so we're on the Pony Express over here, but we should be able to use an API in the cloud and solutions like that for NCMEC so that they can keep up with the volume. So it's a really important bill. Another important bill is the Project Safe Childhood Reauthorization Bill. So that's also a really critical bill because it prioritizes child rescue. So that's another good bill. It's in front of you. It already passed the Senate. It's bipartisan. In terms of our legislation that we want to work on, obviously we're working with you. Thank you so much for stepping forward and taking the lead on this. We're looking forward to working with you. And what we're going to do is we're going to authorize, just like we did for the Hero Child Rescue Corps, we're going to authorize a rescue team, and we're going to house it over at Homeland Security because they really are the best.
Thank you. And Mr. Thibeault, I'd like to return to you, please. You mentioned Operation Renewed Hope. One of the things I think is important that we convey today is a sense of whether there's urgency to this problem. Would you share with us a little bit more about that project and why it is important that we take action now as Congress?
Well, because so many boys and girls, just like this sweet girl, are waiting, and they're suffering, and they're going through the worst days of their life, and so many people are watching it and replaying it and memorializing their worst moments, or they're going through it. This girl was going through it every single night. That's why there's urgency. But one of the things that I love so much about Operation Renewed Hope is it was so many people putting the mission above the credit. It's HSI, is Interpol, it's NCMEC, it's so many people, it's so many countries all coming together for it. And I love that because our fourth non-negotiable at our foundation is there's power when we come together. And so many reasons why we don't is because we're so worried about the credit, not the mission. But if we put the mission first, which is these boys and girls, then I believe we would come together and we could find a solution. And I think this is a really great example of so many people from all over the world putting the mission first, putting the kids first. And I love what they called it, Operation Renewed Hope. Because how many of these boys and girls right now do not have hope? They do not have any hope. You know, and I'm not just talking about the way we use hope in our society of I'm flipping a coin, I hope it lands on heads, or I'm wishing upon a star. No, I love using the biblical definition of hope, to look forward with confidence, expectation, and anticipation. How many of these boys and girls do not get to look forward with any form of confidence, expectation, or anticipation because they believe their tomorrow is going to be just as bad as today, but maybe because of all of us, because of all of you, maybe one day they'll be able to look forward with true confidence, expectation, and anticipation. That's why I love the name Operation Renewed Hope.
Well, thank you, Mr. Thibeault, and your family for your commitment to this very important issue. Mr. Cole, I'd also like to direct a question to you. Earlier, I know we've had some comment about, we obviously have a very serious problem with unaccompanied children and the southern border, but would you please explain for us the distinction between HSI and Border Patrol and how that operationally is different and separate?
Yes, thank you for that a chance to clarify. So Homeland Security investigations are the special agents, the criminal investigators. We are not down at the border, we're not the folks that are handling that specific issue. That is a different agency, although under the umbrella of Department of Homeland Security. And so it is important for that distinction because HSI is really at the forefront of child exploitation crime And we are extremely technically savvy. Our cyber crime center is outfitted with some of the best tech in the world. And our victim identification lab was outfitted with some of the best tech in the world to focus. It's just really an issue of the personnel resources. That's where we're falling short. And just to give one perspective in this kind of global issue for the United States, if you look at our counter-drug budget, just for 2023, that budget was $42.5 billion with a B. If you look at the amount of money that's spent from the federal government to combat child exploitation, it's under 200 million. Look at the disparity there. And I would argue that the two have a correlation. The victims of this horrendous crime of child exploitation, I have personally met these victims. I personally stay in touch with several of the survivors of these cases. When they're not brought out into the light, when they don't have a chance to heal, then what happens? Oftentimes, they turn to substance abuse issues to deaden the pain, to survive, to cope. Also, when you look at the issue of human trafficking, and even for child exploitation, narcotics are utilized as a mechanism to control and subvert our victims. And so there's a correlation. If we just peeled off $1 billion, I mean, what we could do with $1 billion would absolutely blow your minds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.